Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. It's our weekly education webinar again. And today we're going to have a really good content here for you about wholesaling. Now, before that, I want to do a quick introduction about the Wholesale organization. This event is sponsored by and brought to you and hosted by Real Estate IQ. We have a suite of products that really helps real estate investors and anybody that are looking to gain an edge in the real estate business to kind of run your business. And also one of the key core product that we offer is the off-market leads, and specifically where we find and data mine the freshest pre-foreclosure data, where you can gain an edge in doing outreach to these folks that otherwise would end up losing their house in the courthouse auctions. Now, let's move on to the next slide. What we're really excited about bringing you guys today is on wholesaling. And I was just reflecting that, in business, a lot of times we're looking for that competitive edge, right? And one of the not the easiest way, but one of the ways that from a strategic standpoint we always look at is how can I get really, really good at something that other people are not good at or other businesses are not good at. And it usually lies in the kind of intersection of a couple of disciplines. So in wholesale, we always say that wholesaling is more of a marketing and sales business. And that's also residing in real estate. So it's really the intersection of sales and marketing and real estate industry and the closing and the skill sets. So if you're good at these two skill sets, you can do very well in wholesale. And it's a very lucrative business as well. Right. On average, we're talking about $5,000 to $10,000 of profit, and sometimes a lot more. So now the first part, last week we were talking about how you can acquire deals, right? Talking to and doing outreach to motivate sellers and the different tools and inbound, outbound marketing. And today we're going to have AJ back and talk about disposition, which is finding a buyer. So now you got the house, the property under contract. And now we want to sell that contract to a buyer, usually an investor buyer. And so without further ado, AJ, we're going to welcome you on stage here. Oops.
Hey, what's going on, Steve? How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Cool. Yeah, like as you talked about, sorry, I was just working on a buyer walking a property. But yeah, as you mentioned last week, we kind of touched on the acquisition side. Now we're going to touch on dispositions. It's a whole nother sales process. And if you look at like bigger companies, they have different personnel for each one. Bigger companies like New Western, don't recommend them. Don't use New Western. They usually have their team members start at dispositions because then they get a feel of what the buyers actually are looking for. So when they get into the acquisitions role and they need to close deals, they're not locking up contracts that aren't going to sell. Dispositions, selling deals. There's a couple ways to do it. Everybody, like I mentioned last time, everybody's got a new term, how to do things. It's easier to create tools or talk about things than actually do the things. So you get a lot of things that are getting born out of that. But you can do all this pretty much absolutely free. So don't get stuck in too big of a sales funnel and swiping that credit card like I mentioned before. But I figured we just kind of jump right into it. Last week I mentioned a deal over in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is not one of my primary markets. So I don't have a lot of buyers there. So I thought it'd be maybe a good idea just to kind of show what I did so far and how we identified some buyers who should be getting offers back to us by the end of the day today. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. Well, let me back up. I'm going to show you the free way using Zillow And then I'll show you a way using paid tools. And then we'll get into using the MLS because I know like the buzzword is novations and stuff like that. And then we'll kind of touch on JVs and that kind of thing. So I'll share my screen here. It's like I got lint all over me. We've got a set of new towels, so that just came out of the dryer and it's going everywhere. Let me see. All right, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Cool. All right. So this is the Jacksonville property that I mentioned last week. Now it doesn't look like this. This is when the buyer bought it, and she did a lot of renovations, but like a lot of people trying to do renovations remote, the seller lives out of state. You get burned by contractors. I've been there, done that. Don't recommend it. But this is what it looks now. So she did a lot of upgrades, but still needs a lot done. It still has like cloth wiring we found out behind the walls. This is just drywall put over old plaster. So all that kind of creates some problems. And it's not the best area. But, you know, say we're going to sell it for her. She's selling it at an appropriate price. Just got to find the right buyer. So this is how we usually start. Usually just start straight off of Zillow. Take that address, put it in here. Got the property right. I'm going to hit just the back arrow. I'm going to zoom in because it's going to always change the satellite. It's going to zoom in to where that property sits. We're pretty close to it. Now I'm going to do solds. And then I'm going to do the type of property. I'm not worried about running comps. I'm just looking at buyers right now. So I'm not going to change the square footage or anything just yet. I'm going to do sold in the last 6 months. We'll start there and go backwards if we need to. So as I zoom in, I'm going to go over to this side, price high to low, because the higher ones are going to be, you know, turnkey homes, flips, new construction, things like that. As you can see, these are new construction, so it's not who we're looking for. You know, if we had a vacant lot right here and it was at a super deep discount, then yeah, these are the people I'm going to call. But land, since we're talking about that, the rule of thumb used to be you would have to sell it to the builder at about 20%. Times have changed. You got to get that thing to them at 10 or 15% for them to move, especially in rougher neighborhoods like this. But as I go down here, okay, so I got this home. I don't know if this is, okay, so this is an old home, right? Or not a brand new home, but it's flipped. 185. I'm going to go down and look at the history. Okay, so they listed it back in November. So they had it for a year, sold at 85. So this might be a flipper. So what I would do is pick up the phone or go down here. Zillow always shows the listed and bought with. So we don't want the buyer because that's going to be the end buyer, like the homestead buyer. But we can call this listing agent. This number sometimes goes to a recorded line or something like that. So you could take this name and this real brokerage information, put it in Google, search it. Usually it takes like 2 minutes and you can somehow find this person's personal cell phone. You're going to call them, you're going to text them. Realtors are terrible at answering their phone. So when you get them on the phone, it's just, hey, I see that you sold this home off of 5th Street not too long ago. Beautiful renovation. Compliment them on it. They did a great job. Hey, by chance, it appears it was a flip. Do you typically work with this investor, or is this by chance your property? because 50% of the time, it's when you're calling this agent, that agent a lot of times is the actual flipper. So they're like, oh yeah, that was my property. And you open the door, hey, beautiful job, you get them talking to you, because these people get blown up by wholesalers with shit deals all the time. So, being personable, competent, complimenting, you're going to get them to have a conversation, which will also get you good feedback on your deal. So this is, you call them, that's one. A lot of times they'll strike out too. It's like, hey, no, that was actually a homeowner. They flipped it, but needed to move back. Okay, cool. Well, do you have any other investors? Yes, no. If they want to like send it out to their brokerage and stuff, kind of try to end the conversation, move on to the next. So as I go down here, we got this one, same thing. Looks like a flip, right? Older house. This is the agent. Sold, let's see, sold in May. This thing sold back in a year ago. So this tells me it was a flip because they sold it quickly, relisted it, but dang, they, took a long time to sell it. But I actually did speak to this agent. This agent works for a brokerage. She doesn't work with this investor a lot. It was kind of like a one-time thing, from my understanding, but she works with a lot of other investors. So she was very open to the conversation. A lot of agents are really stuck in their ways and traditional and, not familiar with the off-market stuff. So you have to be sensitive to that. So the conversation really was, hey, she works with a lot of investors. A lot of them are always looking, would love to send it to them. Okay, great. Just so you know, I know this is a little untraditional from what you're used to, but this is an off-market deal. We do things a little different. I can send you a link to the listing. That price does not include any buyer agent commission. So please, if you send it to your buyers, just understand that you have to add that on top so you can get paid. No one works for free. And also it's customary for the end buyer to pay both the seller and seller and buyer closing cost on these cash deals. That's pretty standard across the industry. She was receptive to that, cool with it, very familiar with it. Perfect. I'm just going to send you a link. Let me know if you get any interest in it. Great. Okay, on to the next. This one right here. This one, obviously an old home, fresh remodel, right? So new floors, new kitchen, still has the stuff, the plastic on it. Did a good job. Went down, called this agent, listed by Claire. Claire actually works for she's an agent. Turns out she works for what we call a dispo house. So like a dispo house company, at least that's what I call them. I've heard it around a little bit too. So I didn't coin that term. But dispo house is essentially a company that all they do is reach out to other wholesalers and direct to agent a lot of times and literally just sell deals. They're good at dispositions. They're good at selling deals at a high price. And this company is Net Worth Realty. They've been around before New Western. From my understanding, they're a little bit more transparent. I've had good interactions with them. I haven't done any deals with them. This one might be one. They have it in their pipeline right now, looking at it, seeing if there are any other buyers. But with these dispo houses, they have buyers that typically pay more than the ones that you're just going to find. A lot of them are rookie investors overpaying for properties. I mentioned New Western. New Western is notorious for selling shit deals, and they lie all the time. Now, I'm not saying there's not good people in New Western. New Western does have good people. There's a guy out of DFW I've worked with before and stay in communication. He's phenomenal. But 90% of them suck. Their job is just to sell a deal and make money. And I'll share some stories on them if we have a little bit of time. Actually, I'll talk about it when we talk about JVs. So called Claire. She was the listing agent on this. She was actually the one who sold the deal on the front end to this investor too. And he bought it. You can kind of see what they're buying at too. He bought it at 83. Oh no, sorry. He bought it at 77. And something to keep in mind, if he bought, so this was sold on market, but if this was a off market deal and it says sold at 77, more times than not, this 77 is not going to include the assignment fee that was also paid for by the buyer. So they, if this was sold off market and it says sold for 77, but it was a $10,000 assignment, well, they paid 87,000 plus closing costs, but MLS only is reflecting 77. But you could tell obviously the listing history right here. So listed for sale, pending, sold. Let's see here. And it came from Net Worth Realty. So, I mean, maybe this was listed by someone else and then they got it under contract from direct to agent and wholesaled it. Not sure. But yeah, so that was that one. And that's just an example of like doing, using Zillow to find buyers. This is my go-to way of finding buyers. Now I talked to a lot of these agents. They weren't the buyers themselves. So went into the next phase, which is using tools, paid tools to find buyers. Because all these ones aren't good. So do that, try to get really tight to the area. Now, if you're like in a rural place and it's not looking like solds like this, and you're like Texas is a big reason to mention this, but if like you're way out here and there's not flips, if you're getting a property out here, good luck. I wouldn't even be marketing out here. Don't waste your time with a contract. You're just gonna burn marketing money on a deal that's not going to sell, unless you get to put it on the MLS, and we'll talk about that. So we brought in tools, right? Okay, so not getting a whole lot of luck. Got some JV partners going on, sending the deal out. I sent it to some of the few buyers that I actually know in Jax. A lot of the feedback I got was, hey, this is a shit area. We're not buying rentals right now. It's great for a rental, but not so great for a flip. Even at the discounted price, cool, no problem. We don't sit around and wait for offers. We're going to go hunt them down and get this thing closed. So tools, there's a couple tools. There's the two major ones. Obviously, the biggest one is Investor Lift. Investor Lift has things where it can pull cash buyer data and stuff like that. But here's my honest feedback on Investor Lift. Investor Lift started as a very expensive platform. It started for the top tier, it was like $40,000 a year. That created a JV issue because now everybody gets a deal under contract. More times than not, that deal is so skinny. And then on top of that, JV, so they got to get their fee, but then they're trying to sell it at a higher price and diluting the deal, and it's just shit deals going around. So Investor Lift eventually came out with a free platform to where you can post your deal for free and you can rent buyers. So you can pay to like SMS or text blast a lot of the buyers in their database. Another problem I found with Investor Lift is most of those buyers are just other wholesalers trying to daisy chain, trying to take your deal and sell it to their buyers because they don't do their own marketing to direct to seller. Direct to seller is challenging. So if you fail there, guess what? I'm just going to go find buyers and then I'll just search Facebook or Investor Lift, get those wholesale contracts either pretend I'm a buyer or say I represent a buyer who's looking, and then they'll just try to get that and sell it to one of their buyers they connected with. Like I said, dilutes the deal, nothing wrong with it. I JV all the time. But it did create a culture where you're spending money in marketing, and turns out a lot of these buyers are just other wholesalers trying to get a piece of your deal. So I actually got away from Investor Lift. I had a seat on another account for that higher tier. Didn't love it. I was actually selling more deals through just Zillow and doing quick outreach like that. But a new tool came out called Investor Base. I have just recently started using Investor Base, and this is what it would look like. So in Investor Base, you can create a listing. That's something that's super nice. So it looks professional, right? I created this listing. This is what it looks like if a buyer wants to look at it. All I have to do is send them a link, and they can have all this information. They can make an offer. But here's the power of Investor Lift. So if I'm going here to, this is like on the portal. If I go to my deals right now, I'm just started using this, so take this all with a grain of salt. If I click on the deal I'm looking at, so I'm going to start by the search, which here, I'll just do the address real fast. All right. So this is great. Something great about Investor Base that Investor Lift doesn't offer unless you're paying a lot of money. And this is a new platform. They're getting better and better, like every week. So it's great. But this is how you can do buyer search, because we hear about pulling cash buyer lists and stuff from PropStream and batch leads. Don't use that data. Most of it's garbage. You can if you want to, but you're going to spin your wheels trying to cold call them or whatever. So I put the address in here, Jacksonville. I'm going to I'll stick to 2 miles. I don't want to go too far out because it is kind of neighborhood by neighborhood. I'm going to just do a year out because the market's changed a lot. I don't want to look for buyers who are now out of the game. Buyer type, I could choose flip, landlord. I'm going to leave any. Everything except for land is pre-selected. And then there's a couple options here. But I'll search it, right? I feel like I'm doing a paid advertising for Investor Base. Not affiliated at all. Still just kind of learning this tool myself and just implementing it. So it pulls up a lot of flippers and landlord buyers, and it will label them landlord. Now you got to take every data tool with a grain of salt because a lot of them are mistakes. But this can help on the acquisition side too, because like if you see these flips, purchased for 60, sold for 77. Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me, right? That doesn't, not a real flip. You know, I don't know what they did. Maybe they got it at auction and sold it. Same thing here. Same thing here, you know. So a lot of this you got to take with a grain of salt. Like buying at 96 and selling at 140. I don't know. You know, what was their? Did they really flip it? Was it already in this condition? There's other tools you can use to look at that, like Privy, or if you have MLS access, cool. But you know what? Time is money, and we don't want to overthink it too much. So I just do a search, make sure I have, you know, a good amount of buyers on this list. I got 127. So I go back to the search. I'm going to hit that to skip trace it and save results. Okay, so now it has all the phone numbers on these, right? So it's as simple as you click download, goes into a CSV. I go over to Smarter Contact. Smarter Contact is my SMS platform. Now you can do this. I mean, if it was only like 100, you could probably get do it from your phone or Google number or something like that. Or you can get a triple line dialer and dial it. Me, I have SMS, so that's the easiest thing for me. I'll take this list, I'll throw it into the smarter contact. It will blast out messages, and in there we'll find a buyer, hopefully, or people that are interested. We'll send them the link to our property listing, which is literally just this creates a unique link, and when they click on it, they'll see this, and then we'll just try to schedule a walkthrough. So we actually had a walkthrough today from a buyer that we found through doing this process. This buyer owns about 200 homes in New Jersey and over 100 homes in Jacksonville. So that's a pretty good connection that we found. So buyer walked it today, interested, going to make an offer. Hopefully we get that by the end of the day. Now, because we weren't getting so much luck right out the gate, got a little mixed feedback on the area, I did reach out to some JV partners that we have in this area and send it to them. They push out at ridiculous prices and have buyers that will buy it. I have a problem pushing out bad deals. They don't, but so I'll leave it to them. Yeah, so they have someone that's going to be making an offer today too. But let's talk about, so now we talked about just doing it off the MLS, very simple. We talked about using some tools like the paid, using paid versions to get it done. You can post things on Facebook. So you can go to Facebook, join all the local investor cash buyer groups, and you could post it on there. We recently created a dispo business, like a separate brand for Dispositions in Facebook through like the business profile on Meta. And with that, we create a post in every group that we're involved in or added to. We can actually share that post to, I think, like up to 10 groups at a time or something like that, instead of going to each group individually and making 10 different posts. So that's something that we found is really easy. And that's kind of like the older way of doing things, just blasting it on Facebook. You're going to get a lot of people just, hey, I'm interested, but really they're just wholesalers or not really interested. So just be aware of that, kind of protect the, some of the details if you have to, like if you don't feel comfortable putting the whole address in before you vet that person, just put the zip code, but you want to put the details. So now let's talk about JVs. All right. So I'm a firm believer that in the beginning of wholesaling, especially when you're just by yourself, JV, just send that deal out to someone who is selling deals in that area. Try to network and find someone who's competent, and you verify they're doing deals and send it to them. And if it's a straight up good deal, you shouldn't be having to give anything more than 30% of your assignment away. If it's a kind of a questionable deal or there's a lot of strings attached, then you're going to expect to split that assignment 50-50. Now you can be looking at like, oh, this is my first deal, I'm only making $5,000 or $7,000, something like that. And you can get that feeling of like, oh, I need that, or being stingy. I promise, just send it out. You're going to learn in the process. You're going to make connections. You're going to be able to go get another deal, because by yourself, you got this constant roller coaster. You get a deal and then you got to dispo it. So your acquisitions is failing, and then you get a deal and then you're failing, So if you could just kind of keep it more like that, it's going to be more consistent. So a couple things to pay attention to when you JV. Make sure you do not sign an exclusive JV agreement, meaning that if you send someone the deal, they market it to their buyers. If they get a buyer that is ready to sign an assignment agreement, then you send that partner a JV agreement, and it's only for that buyer on that deal. You are not signing an exclusive right to where now, even if you went out and found a buyer elsewhere, they're entitled legally to get part of your assignment fee. I've seen it happen. It's bananas. It's not right. So just be aware of it. We talked about New Western. Okay, so let me tell you what New Western does. New Western is a dispo house mostly. They take their fee and stack it on top. They will say, hey, we're a buyer. I'm going to buy this property from you. Oh, are you a wholesaler? No. We buy properties. They double close, meaning they use transactional funding. They close on your side with you, and then they close immediately right after with the end buyer, and they stack their fee on in the middle. When they send you their assignment agreement, because they want to use their assignment agreement, it says in there, at least last time I saw it, was they did not need to put EMD in. EMD is called consideration. It says that this contract is considered consideration. They don't need to put EMD in. So if I go assign it to New Western, they are going to lock me into an assignment agreement where I am stuck, and they are going to spend a week or whatever marketing it to their buyers. Now, what if they don't find a buyer? Well, no harm, no foul. They cancel on you. Okay. What if they find a buyer and their buyer puts EMD in and it's non-refundable? Usually theirs is $7,500, but their buyer cancels. Well, you don't have EMD in, so you're shit out of luck, but they get their non-refundable EMD. So these are the problems with New Western. I mentioned that last call, we talked about a $50,000 assignment out of Palm Springs, California. Now, New Western tried to get involved in that. I was in a partnership at that time. We had a whole different business. This wasn't too long ago, actually. But I was mostly in the acquisitions role. That was my job. The partner on the other end was making sure things get sold. Well, he reached out to a JV partner through the sub 2 community. Great. Pass it off 30%. Let's just get this thing sold. We got more work to do. That JV partner tried putting it out way too high. I knew it was way too high, but I was staying in my role, staying in my lane, and let them play around with it for a few days. Next thing you know, hey, we got a buyer, $50,000 more than I thought that we were going to. I was like, there's no way. This doesn't make sense as an end buyer. So if it's not making sense, we want to further vet the buyer. We always want to vet the buyer. We don't want to just, hey, oh, you're good. All right, cool. Here, you want to make sure that they can perform, because it could create a lot of problems if they don't. So some of the back and forth just wasn't making sense. And I said, hey, have him send you an email, because I told him, ask him, I said, hey, this looks, sounds, and smells like New Western. Send him an email. Sent an email, got a response back, and their signature was New Western. And that was after that person said, no, we are actually blah, blah, blah LLC, because they don't have New Western LLC. They, like in Pinellas County in Florida, it's Pinellas Equities LLC is their entity out there. I was like, guys, this is New Western. I was like, he's going to lock us up. We're pending a foreclosure. It's not like we have an open-ended timeline on this. We can't do that. So finally I get in the mix. I call the guy, hey, dude, you're New Western. Like, that's fine. We're happy to work with you, but we need transparency, and you're not going to lock us into a contract. Swore up and down he could sell it left and right. I said, look, you're not putting EMD in. That's not right to us. So here's the thing. Your buyer has to be ready to perform right away. We need proof of that. And you guys need to put non-refundable EMD in on our side. That guy never ended up selling the deal. He had people walk it. He had, I think, one person come walk it with him, tried his best. They were trying to stack, like I said, $50,000, but their minimum in Southern California per him is a $30,000 fee on top of what you're already making. So, when they're not being transparent and you got to kind of dig to get there, we're not going to waste our time with you. So be very careful on JVs, sniff out the BS, be competent. Don't just, hey, okay, the process. You got to protect your contract and the seller. You don't want to leave it in someone else's hands. We're doing another JV right now with the sub 2 deal. Now, sub 2 deals, JVing, I really don't like because I can't vet the buyer as thorough as I want to. Doing a sub 2 deal, this person is going to take over the mortgage payment, and we're giving our word that this person is going to perform. There's a lot of buyers that are sucking up these sub 2 deals because they watched one too many YouTube videos and they can't make the mortgage payments, and it's not hurting their credit, it's hurting the sellers, and it's hurting our reputation. So I actually run background checks on like brief ones on sub 2 buyers, make sure they're not like in default anywhere, or criminal records, things like that. I could pull back the curtain on one person right now who's in 200K plus in private money debt, and he's a super scammer, but he's in, sub 2 community as an owner club member, which is like you pay extra money to get in. And this guy's a full-blown scammer. Felony probation for stealing an Uber car and beating up the driver and leaving him on the side of the road. It's bananas, but people flock to him because he has YouTube content. So be very, very careful. But anyways, forgot where I was going. Oh, JV partners, sub 2. So, these people, JV partners, are brand new. So I wanted to help them get their first deal. So I had buyers walk it I was direct to, but you know what? I actually, through conversation, I found out who the buyer was. The end buyer was cool with it, and I'm totally happy making less if we can get 2 people who it's JV partners. They're partners. They're 2 of them. Totally cool. Want them to get their first deal. Like that is that's another win for me. So it's not all about just making your assignment fee. So keep that in mind. We didn't talk about the MLS. So I know everybody wants to learn about novations and all this stuff. So let's talk about the MLS real quick. When do we use the MLS? We use the MLS for properties that are not distressed. The seller wants convenience and a faster timeline than listed on the market. Or if it's a cash deal that is maybe a little too rural or might be a difficult property to sell. I'm going to pull up a property that was difficult to sell. I put on the MLS, and I'll show you how we found a buyer. So this property right here, 3900 Alabama Avenue. This is in St. Pete. This is an area called Shore Acres. Good area, but this got hit in the hurricanes back to back, like 2 years in a row. Helene was obviously more devastating. I had properties get hit too. So right after the flooding happened, a lot of these homeowners wanted to sell these homes. There was some navigating, like insurance and stuff like that. So I was able to help the seller with that, make sure he got paid his proceeds. But this is the home. Nice home. I wish I bought this home and kept it because it was a great deal. I kick myself in the butt all the time when I look at this one, because this is the area I buy in personally. So garage conversion, has a pool. Obviously this had, 4 feet of water coming up into it. Had just gotten fully remodeled, like such a great home, but got flooded. But all this stuff still would have been good. I mean, rewire, put in new cabinets. The cabinets were bought locally, so I could have sourced them. I mean, the panel had been upgraded, but I mean, it would be a full rewire because once salt water touches that stuff, it runs up the cords, the insulation in the cords. So, but I mean, the garage was converted to another bedroom with its own mini split. That would have needed to be replaced, but great deal. I think we sold this for at 130. So why was this is in an area with a lot of flips going on, a lot of activity. It's in the suburbs, but why the MLS? I knew I was going to have a hard time selling it because all these neighborhoods got flooded. Inventory was super high, and if I pulled a list that was only local to that area, I'm going to be limiting the exposure. A lot of people in Florida invest from other areas of Florida and from out of state. There's a lot of East Coast influence into Florida. So I was like, you know what, I got to put this on the MLS. And this all leads back to transparency. You have to be really transparent with the sellers that you're not going to be the end buyer. And if you just don't go down that path in the beginning and just flow in a conversation on the acquisition side, just flow in a conversation of, yeah, no, my investors aren't going to buy this at this, or investors will buy this, and just kind of like create that context through just normal conversation. It's not hard to be transparent. I even had the countertop saved. But this seller's name is Rob. He got kicked around by another wholesaler for a month. Couldn't sell it. He ended up getting out of that contract. It was an inbound lead. He was actually under contract, said, hey, I can't help you legally. You have to get out of that contract and we can help you. He was sure, no problem. Actually got out of that contract, came back to me, sold this thing really quick. So MLS, flood property. I put it on the MLS just using a flat fee listing. Now you can use a listing agent. A lot of people swear like, hey, I'm getting away from using flat fees and only going to listing agents. I like flat fees because if something happens and it's canceled, I'm not obligated to deal with an agent and disappoint them. Well, I just paid $100 for a flat listing fee and I just turn it off. Not a big deal. So that's why I like flat listing fees, and a lot of agents don't answer their phones, whereas I can control the phone getting answered on our end, even if it's an automated AI recording or my TC, something like that. So you can use Baycom flat fee listing. So this is Baycom. Another one, $99. Another one is called Brokerless. That's another one. They're actually located out of Miami. So when we do MLS, there's an extra piece of paper you got to get. So this is my paperwork library. This is my normal cash agreement. We get a cash agreement, and then we get this. Oops, my TC messed this up. You get an attorney in fact. This is what's supposed to be on there. Authorization to sign listing docs and offers. This is an attorney in fact. Other people do power of attorneys. I think attorney in fact just sounds less clying or concerning to the seller. So it just says a limited specific authorization to, that's my full name, related to the property. And then this is pretty much a clause authorization to list the property on any MLS. And it also includes to sign the addendums, disclosures, sales contracts, whatever. So this was a little bit of a unique one. When you put it on the MLS, you put it up, you attach the contract, you attach the authorization to sign listing docs and offers. It goes live. Now you get calls coming in. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, those calls are going to be from buyer agents. So with a buyer agent, they're expecting to get commission. I had a buyer agent call in and said, hey, what's the commission? I said it's going to be 2.5%. She goes, I don't know about that. I was like, you kidding me? That's like 2.5%. Like, what the hell? You're that entitled? You would throw a deal or not show it to your buyers for 0.5. I mean, I didn't say that, but I already know, like, I'm not dealing with this knucklehead. She ended up getting an offer back from her buyer and it was way below. I was like, thanks for wasting my time, pretty much. Kill them with kindness. Don't say that out loud. But just keep in mind, if you do list on the MLS, you got to mark it up to compensate for 3% buyer agent commission. You can negotiate that, but you want to count for that. 3% buyer agent commission, and you got 2% closing costs, because what's going to happen? Real estate agents, when they send offers, they send an actual offer on their contract. So to accept that contract, you can't have two contracts on a property. So this is when novations come into play. If it's coming from an agent and they're sending an offer on a contract, and you sign that contract to accept that offer, the numbers make sense. Well, what happens to the underlying contract with the seller? Because you're not assigning it to them. That's a new contract that they got. You're going to do a novation agreement. And this is a longer agreement, but essentially what this spells out is seller retains the balance of blank. And this is what the cash contract's for. So if the cash contract was for, I think we made 10 grand on this one, 120. Well, this is what the purchase price of that cash contract will go in at. And you don't submit your cash contract to title. You just submit this novation agreement and the new contract from the agent. That goes to title. And then it spells out the instructions of how you get paid. You get paid a novation fee based off the balance of the two. Now, this was a unique one because I put this on the MLS. The buyer was actually a real estate agent from Miami, but she was the buyer. So there is no buyer agent commission they need to pay. She is the direct buyer, so she doesn't have to run it through her brokerage. So I said, hey, if you're the end buyer, if I just take out the buyer agent commission, discount the property for you in that way, would you be okay if we just did this off market as an assignment? Yeah, of course, no problem. So instead of doing all this headache, I just sent her an assignment. There we go. Which just says me, assigns it to you, this property. Say I had it at 120, her purchase price was 130. I'm going off the top of my head on that one. But we did make 10 grand on this. Hey, your purchase price is 130. This is the company. Earnest money, you're going to put in 5 grand. We'll talk about this next week on the TC portion, but it was that simple. So she takes over the underlying contract and we do it that way, off market. So that's how you use MLS. Like I said, if the property is going to be difficult to sell, people say, oh, the cash buyers are higher on the MLS, but really it gets washed out because you have to compensate for buyer agent commission and closing costs. If it's somewhat of a rural property, you can put it on the MLS. But again, you do not want to be marketing to very rural areas. You're just going to waste your time, waste your money. I would say if it's within an hour of a major area, then you're probably good. But just know, if you're doing it that route, you really have to sell it as like a retail buyer program. You're not going to be looking for cash buyers on good looking homes and out in the country. Like, we have a seller right now, beautiful newly built home, needs to sell it, is actually trying to get out of a contract with another wholesaler who's running it as a novation, but they lied left and right, overpriced the property, super inexperienced, told them straight up, look, this is going to sell at this price. It's going to take this long, and we're going to have to do showings. We don't do open houses, sign in the yard, none of that. I sell it as a discounted listing service. So they do end up saving commission. So on those turnkey properties that are nice, I'm not going to waste my time on doing a novation that is only going to sell for $150,000 if it's like out in the middle of nowhere, but it's a nice home. Like if it's over like 500,000 and we can save them money on commission, but still get like a pretty good assignment or a novation fee, then yeah, sure, I'm going to do that one. But you have to be conservative and price it aggressively. The last thing I just want to mention with all of this is transparency. Transparency with the seller. If you just keep that transparency, it is going to make it so much easier on the dispo side. When you have to get people in there to walk it, you might have to push close of escrow. You need a price reduction. Like if you're just transparent up front that you are not the end buyer, then that makes dispositions so much less stressful. But yeah, that's much as I can do in this short amount of time. But I'll open it up if anyone has questions.
Hey AJ, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate the novation side. It's kind of a hot topic amongst folks that are in the wholesale business.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So we got a question. How do you qualify potential buyers to make sure they're serious?
A lot of it is through conversation. Hey, you got to get personable with them. It's like I said, it's a sales game. Kind of like on the front end, you're looking for motivation, and sometimes it's kind of hard to peel back the layers. But same thing on the back end with buyers. I can tell within like a 3-minute conversation if this is a real buyer or if they've never bought a deal before. Hey, are you looking around here? Do you do much deals here? Things like that. So like if they're not able to perform just off my sense, well, I'm not going to put all my eggs in their basket. But if I'm talking to them, they're like, hey, yeah, I just flipped a home, a mile away. I own 2 rentals in this area. I really want this. That happens a lot. Then yeah, okay, they're serious. And then when our assignment agreement, now on the cash side, we don't have to vet them as much as the sub 2 side, but on the cash side, if I feel confident with them, I'll send them our assignment agreement. If they don't have EMD in within 1 business day, that contract's null and void. So if they don't submit EMD, well, moving on, and as far as like sub 2s and things like that, a lot of these people are active in social media and stuff like that. So we'll creep on them. We'll look up their social media profiles. We'll see if they're in any of these scammer groups. Like I said, I'll use benverified.com. It's a good tool. Not perfect, but I could look up people's criminal history, things like that. So yeah, those are a couple things.
And Anthony.
I'm sorry. I do also verify, how are you funding this? Are you using hard money, private money? Do you have to raise money? What does that look like? If they're hard money, I tell them, hey, send me a pre-approval. I just want to make sure you can close on this. If they got to go out and raise money, well, that's a conversation we're going to have.
That's really good. Anthony has a question about what do you do to vet them? Like, what are some elements? Is kind of how I read into this.
Yeah. Let's see, what things do we need to ask and what things do we need from them to fully vet them? Are you doing deals in this area, or is this your first one? Okay, that's kind of going to gauge their performance level. Are you buying flips? Are you buying rentals? What kind of exit strategy do you do? Do you do co-living? So like a sub 2, the sub 2 that I'm mentioning, the buyer has another co-living. This deal does not cash flow as a long-term rental. It's not in an HOA, so it would work as a co-living. Especially, there's a lot of co-living operators in this area, I found out by looking at rental comps. And this buyer has another co-living in that city. So are they familiar with the city? I mean, do they have crews there? Me as a buyer, I know it's a pain in the ass to perform in an area if I don't have established contractor relationships there. So how are they funding? What's their exit strategies? What's their experience level? Are they familiar with the area? And if again, on their funding, if they're using hard money, hey, can you send me a pre-approval as soon as you can?
Good. Thank you. And I think we answered a couple of questions. We got a couple of similar questions about buyers and qualifying them, how to get properties that fit their criteria. I think these are all. Maybe a couple of things to kind of add is asking if they have a buy box. Is there like a particular square footage or price range that they're looking for? Do they want a 3x2, 2x2?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of people weigh in like, hey, what's your buy box? And I used to get asked that, and honestly, it would drive me nuts. I would be like, dude, I don't have time to break down. Just send me. I don't want to. Are you a buyer that buys in the affordable housing, like sub 400 mark or whatever it is for the area? Or are you doing luxury flips? Like those are two different people. Hey,
Right.
Are you doing flips or are you doing rentals? Are you doing co-living? Are you doing short-term rentals? So I would keep it more broad, because if you get too tight knit, you might overlook sending that person a deal that they might be looking for, and people's strategies change. Now, there are buyers that say, don't send me anything unless it has 2 bathrooms. If it's only got 1 bathroom and it's under 1,000 square feet and I can't add another one, don't send it to me. I don't want it. So it's more like, hey, what kind of investments do you look for? Flips, rentals, creative stuff. What's the price range? Like entry level or luxury? And are there any red flags for you that you absolutely stay away from? Like in Florida, a lot of people don't want to touch wood frame homes. They only want block homes.
Let's see here. Okay, so that's already addressed as well. Do you ask for proof of funds?
Yeah. So like I said, we do. If it's hard money and I'm kind of like if I have a questionable vibe about this person, I do it. I don't do it 100% of the time. I let their money, put your money where your mouth is. My assignment sent to you, I have 5K non-refundable EMD. If that's not in one day, I'm not taking you serious. But if you sign that assignment and you put that 5K EMD in and you're willing to lose it, that tells me you're serious. And guess what? If you don't perform, that EMD is non-refundable. I'll work something out with the seller to keep them happy, and we'll just find another buyer.
So how do you decide double closing versus assignment, AJ? Maybe we can explain what each one is.
Yeah. So assignment is just assigning. And we'll get into this a little bit more next week, but straight assignment, they're taking over the underlying contract. You're going to get paid an assignment fee. Now, your assignment fee, if you talk to title company, right, the seller should not see it. It should be 2 separate settlement statements, the buyer and the seller, and your assignment fee goes on the buyer side. So they will see your fee. Now, if a buyer, red flag for a buyer, vetting them, if they have a problem, if they start making comments that they have issues, if they say, hey, what's your assignment fee? Oh, if like they have a problem of you making a certain amount of money, and you're not going to work with that. Don't work with that buyer. If the numbers work for them, it works for them. It doesn't matter what my assignment fee is, right? That comes off of my skill on the front end with acquisitions, or what the seller wants or needs, or that buyer has no idea the hoops we're jumping through to solve this seller's problems. So assignment, straight off, they're going to see that. Now people say, hey, if it's over 25K, 50K, whatever, double close. Okay, if it's a fat assignment and you're really concerned, like if it's a 6-figure assignment and you're like, man, I don't want to lose this, I'm just going to be safe. Yeah, go out and get transactional funding. It's usually like 1% of whatever you need. And you'll eat into your assignment, but it protects you. It closes on the first one and then immediately funds the second one. Now, there are certain states where you have to double close. So there's a lot of wholesale laws changing. So, certain states can't get around it. You have to close on it, double close. Personally, I've never double closed. If you get into like certain groups like Sub 2 and stuff like that, they have like their Gator stuff, which teaches how to make money off lending and transactional funding. And people will go in there and be like, oh, you need a double close because yeah, they're trying to sell you their transactional funding. So just be careful. Like don't lose money when you don't need to or rely on someone else. So double close when you have to legally, or you really want to protect that assignment. But on the front end, you shouldn't be working with a buyer who's going to have a problem.
Cool. Thank you, AJ. And our time is up today. And before we let you go, just a quick reminder that next week, same time, we will have AJ back to kind of finish our series, which is about transactional coordinating and closing. So that's going to be an exciting topic, and look forward to seeing you. And I assume this is the QR code where you can register for our next class. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, AJ.
Yeah. See you guys.
See you the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. We'll stay in touch.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.